What is up everyone, welcome back to another video. It's the international break, but we're going to have a bit of a discussion about whether you should wildcard for game week 4. What is up everyone, welcome back to another video. So as I mentioned in the introduction, we're going to have a bit of a discussion about whether you should wildcard in game week 4. Now initially the plan for a lot of people was to wildcard after game week 6, game week 7, because there's a big fixture swing for the likes of Chelsea, Manchester City and Manchester United around then. However, with the activity in the transfer window, with the signing of Ronaldo for example, with Lukaku coming in, Kane going back into training and a lot of different midfielders now showing themselves as potentially good options, as well as the defence being a bit of a minefield as well. Some of those players we picked early on may not be the ones we want in our team now. So with that in mind, there are a lot of you thinking about activating your wildcard, and so I'm going to have a bit of a discussion about whether you should be playing it, what you should be thinking about when you're making that decision, and then I'll go and put all that thoughts and talk about my team and whether I'm going to wildcard for game week 4 or not. Later in the week there will be different wildcard drafts out. I will put a video out which will have 3 different drafts for you to think about. So even if you are not 100% sure, you can wait for that. But this necessarily won't be, this is who you should pick. This will be, should you wildcard, and here are the reasons why you should be thinking about it, or maybe your team isn't right. To start off, I think it's worth noting that every team is different. Not everyone should be playing their wildcard now, but there are some teams that will need it more and some teams that won't need it. So this is why I'm putting this out, to try and get you thinking a little bit about whether your wildcard is needed for game week 4 or not. So the first question, I think the most obvious one, but it can often go out the window, is your team performing well? If you've got players in your team that are scoring points and you think that there's a good chance that they continue to score a lot of points for you, then I don't really see the need to wildcard. Now, of course, it can help build team value. You can jump on players early that other players might not have. However, if you are selling players that are performing well for other players that you are hoping to start performing well, that doesn't really make that much sense to me. So if you are doing really well and you don't have that many transfers you're willing to make, then I don't really think it's worthwhile. Now, of course, there are caveats to that, but the first thing you need to be asking yourself when you're thinking of activating your wildcard, however nice and shiny that wildcard button may be, if your team is performing well and you're happy with it, then it's probably not the best time to use it, and you could be better off using it further down the line. Next up, what transfers would you make? So if you look at your team and you think, oh, I really want to play my wildcard because there are 2 players that I want to get in. Are you better off just using transfers to get that, and actually you'd maybe change some of the players that sit on your bench that really isn't worth making your wildcard for? How many changes are there to your actual starting 11 that means you need to play your wildcard? So what I would do, and what I've done with my team, is I made a team that I would probably wildcard to. How many of those players that I am wildcarding to get am I 100% that I absolutely need them and are essential for my team? How many of them are nice to haves, and then how many of them are changes, I suppose, for the sake of changing it? So maybe changing your goalkeeper or changing your 4.5 or your 4.0 defender on the bench. If those are the transfers you're making on your wildcard, although it may look like you're making 5-6 changes to your team, how many are you actually making in your starting 11? So again, is it the best time for you to be using it, or could you get a more beneficial use out of it further down the line? And again, I suppose building on this, are you sure you want to sell the players you're selling? So although there are players like Ronaldo, Ferran Torres that are doing very well at the moment that you are wanting to buy, are the players that you're taking out, it builds onto this, is your team actually performing well? Do you actually want to sell the players that you are taking out of your team in the first place? If you are, okay, selling a player like, I don't know, a lot of people like myself thinking of selling Danny Ings, Bruno Fernandes, I can see why that potentially is wildcard worthy, because you are making big changes to your team. But if you're looking to sell, I don't know, maybe someone like Rafinha because you want to change midfielder, for example, or Luke Shaw to a Chelsea defender, these aren't really transfers that I think need to be used on a wildcard, and you can probably make them further down the line, and they're not really essential to make now because the players you are taking out are just as good as the players you are buying. And then I think the key one that sort of all combines is could you benefit from this more later down the line? So yes, it might be great now. You think, okay, I can get on Lukaku, I can get on Ronaldo, Ferran Torres, but in 5 weeks' time, these players might not be the ones that you want. So in game week 6, game week 7, when initially looked like we'd all want to wildcard, there is that big fixture swing. So if you wildcard now, just ask yourself, game week 6, game week 7, if Chelsea then have a really nice run of fixtures, are you going to start with the players that you want in that run now, or are you going to have to buy them in? Same with Manchester United. They have a really nice couple of fixtures now. Are you going to own Mason Greenwood and Luke Shaw and have them for this nice couple of fixtures that you probably own already? Or are you going to sell them and not have them for these couple of fixtures? You're going to have to use transfers to get them in or sell them later down the line. So just think about, yes, it may look really shiny and it is such a good time often to get on price rises, things like that in the first international break. But is there going to be a more beneficial time for you to use your first half of the season wildcard? The final point that we're going to add here is, could you just take a -4 or -8? And when we go on to look at my team, and I'll pull it up and I'll start making moves live on the video for you, could you just make a -4 or -8 and pretty much get to the team that you'd want? Now, if you're taking a -12, -16, then okay, yes, it's wildcard worthy. But if you can get there, maybe a -4 and another transfer next week, or a -8, then I don't really necessarily think it's worth making your wildcard now, and I think you could get more of a benefit further down the line. So again, although yes, you might want to make 3 changes to your starting 11, but could you make those as just normal transfers and make proper changes on a wild card in a few game weeks time once there is that other fixture swing? So it's just, bear in mind, is it really the best time for you to play it? Now, it may well be, and you may go through this list of things and think, yes, I need to play my wild card now, and that is absolutely fine. Great that you are deciding that, but do just try and make that bit of a decision. Don't just think, oh, okay, yeah, I'll play it now. Could you get more of a benefit later down the line? So if we put those questions down there now and we pull up my team here. So this is my team at the moment on the transfer page. Got 1 free transfer and 0.2 in the bank. And I'll go through and see my discussion to myself earlier when I was walking down the street thinking, are these the questions I need to answer when deciding on my wildcard? And then I'll give you a conclusion about whether I'm going to play it or not and my current thinking. So is my team performing well? So yes, my first 2 game weeks were really good. My game week 3 wasn't quite as great, only because I got the captaincy wrong though. So if I captained Antonio instead of captaining Bruno Fernandes, I would have had another good game week. So I can conclude that I'm pretty happy with the way my team's performing. I'm about 300k, but if I'd have captained Antonio, then I would be inside the top 200k. So that's a fault of me, not a fault of the team that I've picked. What transfers would I make? So if I start to think about the players that I really want in my team. So I think the premium striker is a big one. So I think if I was to do Danny Ings and Bruno Fernandes out, for example, and in their place I was to bring, if we say Ronaldo, but for the moment while he's not in the game, I put Harry Kane. And then as well as that, in the midfield spot, Ferran Torres, who got a price rise up to 7.1 million last night. So those would be the key transfers. Now I would also want to probably change some of my defenders. Tsimikas I would probably sell. Ayling I may change to another 4.5 defender, and I may go for a change in formation of not having Benrahma and getting another forward, for example, and getting a Callum Wilson to go up front or something like that. And I might not want Ben White in my team as well. However, they're not real transfers that's going to drastically change my point scoring every week in my starting 11. So my question to myself as we go further down the list is, could I take a -4 or a -8 to get there? For me, given that the players that I want in my team at the moment, for example, Greenwood and Luke Shaw, I still want for the next 3 weeks. If we have a look at the Manchester United fixtures, Newcastle at home, West Ham away, Aston Villa at home, I still want Greenwood and I still want Luke Shaw for those 3. But from game week 7, where they play Everton, Leicester, Liverpool, Tottenham, Man City, all on the bounce with Chelsea a short while after, maybe I don't want them from then. So could I use my wildcard after that game week 6 fixture to make the move away from Manchester United towards the likes of Chelsea, who have a really good run? So if we just go and pull up a Chelsea player just to put that into perspective for you. So if I wanted Lukaku, so the next 3, Aston Villa, Tottenham, Man City, potentially more difficult. But again, when Manchester United go on a difficult run from game week 7, we have Southampton, Brentford, Norwich, Newcastle, Burnley on the bounce. So a Manchester United shift away to Chelsea makes a lot of sense for us if you're still owning those assets. So as I go through and answer those questions, am I sure I want to sell the players? Yes. Ings and Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes maybe not essential depending on whether Ronaldo is going to start, but I do think that Danny Ings out to a premium forward is worthwhile, especially if Ronaldo comes in with Newcastle in game week 4, and then downgrading Bruno Fernandes to the likes of Ferran Torres, who's looked so good for Manchester City so far, does mean that I do think the transfers that I'm planning on making if I did play my wildcard are worthwhile. However, could I benefit more from it further down the line? So at the moment, this would be only a -4. Now, of course, if I made an actual wildcard, I'd change my 4.5 defenders, I might change my goalkeeper, I'd sell Simicast and things like that. But could I just get close enough for a -8? Now, I think I can get pretty close. The starting 11 may be slightly different, but I think I'm close enough that a -4 or a -8 is close enough that it's not worth me activating my wildcard, and I'll get more of a benefit further down the line while just taking a hit this week to get in that premium forward if Ronaldo's going to start and Ferran Torres into my midfield. So that is my current thoughts on my wildcard plans and what you should be thinking at between now and the Game Week 4 deadline. If you are going to play your wildcard and you are set on it, it is worth activating it sooner so you can start making those transfers and getting those price rises, which are going to happen with the likes of Torres already going up. The other options like Greenwood looking like he's going to rise in price as well. So if you are going to do it and you've gone through this list of questions, then do think about making those transfers early on. But there will be plenty of videos out over the international break, both for those of you who have your wildcard active, so there'll be different wildcard drafts to come your way, as well as players to target and transfers for you that are not on your wildcard either. So if you have enjoyed, please do subscribe so when those videos do come out, you are ready for them, and like the video, it is much appreciated. Enjoy the international break, and I will see you all very soon.